Okay. I don't know what our video description is. If you want to go in and edit that, that's okay. But we are indeed live. Finally.
Sweet. Yeah, it's about time.
Yeah.
You're doing a real bang up job over there. God, I forgot to.
Okay.
Are you want to do an intro?
Yeah, yeah, sure. Okay. So this week we are going to be covering the two Adam Sandler murder mystery videos.
Movies.
Or
They're
yeah,
feature like films.
we were talking
Videos.
we were talking about videos, and that just got my brain going on videos. So, it is. If you want to kind of explain them about a bit, give your
Yeah,
take.
sure. Yeah, so it's Adam Sandler and Jennifer Aniston, and it's a comedy. Well, it's a comedy detective film basically. Very standard setup. Somebody gets killed, they have to find the killer,
Yeah,
and its value is totally and completely in Adam Sandler.
it is. Even a lot of the time, I felt like that very Adam Sandler-ness that comes in all his movies was very out of place with the rest of the tone of these movies, but
Right,
the
because
comedy was
because
good.
because almost every other character is playing it straight,
Yes.
or straight, mostly straight. They have like their character quirks, but they're not like ridiculous, like
Yeah, they,
meta humor.
they're believable characters, except Adam Sandler's character.
And Jennifer Aniston. So like those two like take you out of the flow, which is fun. Which is like comic relief. Except I think one of the problems is with a movie like this is if your main value is in the comic relief and your comic relief is the main character, you might get taken out like a bit too much.
I didn't think that was the main problem. My main problem with like a lot of the setup of the films was more so around the fact that it was like this thing is going on, and whenever something would happen on screen, the next minute would be Adam and Kate's reaction to what was going on. Like they would basically kind of stop, their characters would react, they would then say what was going on in this overly dramatized way, and it was kind of very much out of place. Like, oh my god, honey, you just killed a man. She's like, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. Well, you might as well kill another because you're already a murderer. As like
What
this car chase scene is going on, and it's like, come on, guys.
so your yeah, well your issue is that they take you out of what's happening too much is what you're saying.
Yeah, their reaction is very much out of what is going on screen.
Right, and that's true, but that's only because the two main characters are comedians,
Yeah,
or not comedians, but I guess Adam Sandler is a comedian, but Jennifer Aniston does like comedy
yeah,
movies.
yeah. And
So
all in
so you
all,
have these things, and they're both pretty funny, but
yeah, they
it
were very.
it, it and it's a fish out of water story, is what it is. Like
I
it's two ridiculous people in a action movie.
I did really enjoy the entirety of like everything else, like the build up of the movies and like where they went and the people they interacted with. They got each of the stereotypical, people with each of their own reasons and motives for doing the murder. And so that
Right.
was cool. And like just seeing all the locations that they shot at were all shot very well. It was a very well put together movie.
So I guess we are kind of talking about both ones, but more so the more recent one.
Hmm.
Where okay, a little summary of the plot. Um, so Adam Sandler and Jennifer Aniston started a PI business because of their successful investigation in the last movie, and it's going under. And then they get invited to the guy's wedding, who was a character in the last movie. And at the wedding, the character gets kidnapped. He's a very wealthy guy, and one of his bodyguards gets killed, and they have to hostage negotiate. They go through the things. There's a lot of there's a double cross at one point. The money changes hands, but
And
eventually they come together, and they come together with all the suspects, and they learn who did it, and it was the guy that everyone knew did it.
unfortunately, like one my biggest complaint about both of their movies is how both of the movies are basically copy and paste versions of each other. Everything
You,
down
you
to pacing, the characters involved, the story and how things unfolded, the way it unfolded, like very copy and paste.
one of the issues, one of the issues I had with the movie is that the writing a mystery movie, even though like every show that comes out is a detective show nowadays, writing a 2 hour like suspenseful mystery movie is actually very difficult, or like a mystery story, right?
Mhm.
So that's why like Sherlock, um, who's the author of Sherlock? It's something Doyle. Doyle writes Sherlock. He's considered an amazing author because it's hard to write detective. It's hard to keep the audience on their toes, right?
Yeah, which is
And this movie takes like a very cheap way out in it, which is to just not.
withhold information from the viewer.
That's all mysteries are about withholding information. But
No,
the way this one does it is that it doesn't leave any breadcrumbs. It basically shows you the loaf at the end.
yeah,
If we're using bread as our analogy, you don't follow the breadcrumbs to the loaf. It just pops out a loaf
yeah.
because they don't know how to leave just enough breadcrumbs.
It very much is like this very action-paced movie, and you think you got your bad guys and you got your story going on, and then they solve it, and it's like, oh wait, that was the wrong person. It was really this guy all along. And it's like, oh, okay. As the two main characters then reveal exposition that they received during their time that we, the audience, didn't. And it was like, okay. And I just kind of lost all investment when that happened in both movies.
Well, about that thing about the cheap way out of a mystery is Glass Onion, which was a very serious movie, had or I guess it wasn't very serious, but which was a way more serious movie, had the exact same flaw.
Hmm,
Did you watch Glass Onion?
I did not.
Oh, well, I won't say you gotta watch it because it's bad.
Okay.
But they who Daniel Craig has this monologue at the end where he
Mhm.
goes, the host is an idiot. The guy, one of the actors, he goes, he's an idiot, and his idiotness explains all the writer's idiotness, basically.
Yeah.
So that's their way out, and it's pretty rough, honestly. And it's whereas Knives Out kind of takes a very straightforward who killed it approach.
Yep.
Glass Onion takes like the shove the loaf in your face thing.
Yeah.
So
Th- this is very much one of those movies that I consider like a fast food movie.
I agree, right? Adam Sandler wanted to make this movie, is what happened. Adam Sandler was like, I liked working with Jennifer Aniston. Let's make another one of those movies. And they were like, get me a script in a week and a half.
It did have a lot of good laughs to it in it, and I thought that the first one was a little bit cheeky, and it was okay. It was pretty good. The second one absolutely didn't take any creative liberty and copied the first one all the way down to even like the pacing of when action scenes or plot reveals would occur. But outside of that, it was good.
You have the advantage of having watched them back to back. I didn't rewatch the first one, which maybe I should have.
I watched the
Um,
first one and then I was on my phone during the second one because I was so bored out of my mind watching it.
well, let me ask you this.
Yeah.
I always guess the killer with 100% accuracy every time.
Hmm.
All right, like I'm really good. Or movies are just written poorly. But did you know the killer as soon as you saw him, or
No,
or within 5 minutes of having him as a character?
no.
Okay,
The problem is
because
that they just dump so much new information. Like it is so vague at the start, and they just dump so much new info that like as time goes on, and especially at the end, then they just shake it all up and pull new information out of their ass right at the very end, and it's like, okay,
well, you know what? In the beginning, there is that one kind of annoying scene where all the characters come in to give you exposition at the same time, and they found a somewhat funny way to make that work, where they can get all the potential motives for all the killers at the beginning, but
hmm
it is sort of like just a cheap way out of it. Like throw a few laughs, but here's the exposition, basically.
hmm
Um, I don't know, but I did I actually I as soon as I saw both because there are really two characters involved in the thing, and then there's also a people that try to take advantage of the situation,
yeah,
but that was thrown in there for absolutely no reason. But yeah, as soon as I like you get 5 minutes with those characters and you're like, okay, they did it.
yeah,
Like it was I mean I've been talking like we're avoiding spoilers, but do we really care?
no,
Okay. So the
we
bald guy,
never avoided spoilers in the past.
okay, the bald detective guy, uh like obviously he shows up out of the water, you're like, okay, that guy. And as soon as he blows up in the car, you're like, that definitely wasn't real.
I knew from the very beginning though that the Colonel definitely didn't kill.
Because the colonel's awesome. But
I liked him.
my favorite I actually really like the joke where Adam Sandler was like, "You could steal this $50 million. You'd have enough money to buy yourself a bionic arm." And he goes, "I looked it up. They're only like 3 grand."
And it was
And
like,
he goes,
are
"Oh,
they
I guess you're
really
not
that
Seth
cheap?
anymore."
Are they really that cheap? He was like, yes. It's amazing how far technology has come. He's like, damn, I should get myself one of those. And the Colonel just replies, says, but you would have to lose your arm. He's like, I wasn't talking about for my arm.
What do they actually cost? Okay, it's $20,000 to $80,000. So really not that cheap, but
The Colonel did say it was the exact number he gave on script was 30,000.
was it?
Yeah,
I thought he said 3,000.
no, it was 30,000.
Oh,
Which,
okay.
to be fair, they are like people at their wealth with like their level of wealth. That's nothing.
Well, the colonel isn't rich,
He's
is he?
very well off. Yeah, he's
I
very well off.
I thought he was just working for the rich guy.
Well, I assume that the rich guy pays him very well for personal protection, and he's been doing it for a long time. Like he's the one bodyguard who hasn't died, which you could say is a good or a bad thing,
Yeah,
but
but that's kind of a prerequisite for having done bodyguarding for a long time, never to have died.
yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I thought I just kind of figured that I don't think he pays him that well. Like $30,000 still feels like quite a bit of money.
Well, let's look this up, because I believe bodyguarding is fairly well paid. It's not amazing how much.
Okay, well beyond that, and
Oh
then
yeah.
the other kidnapper was the sister.
Well, so the top earners for bodyguard work get paid like 150,000.
A year?
Yeah.
Okay, which if you're the top earner, that means you're guarding like Bill Gates or like someone who's gonna be
Mm.
assassinated. And honestly, 150,000 is not enough money for me to do that.
It's about $70 an hour.
Yeah.
to do
Not not
much.
nearly enough.
Like, yeah, your life is at risk, but I mean, you're in more jeopardy working in the military or as a police officer
Yeah,
or
but
any other
with
public servant.
with the military, like I there is that thing where like I mean everyone says this everywhere. You read this in both like The Art of War and The Prince, and then also in like works of fiction like Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
But so all like everyone knows this. Like sellswords are not reliable, and the reason that everyone says they're not reliable in all of these different works of literature is that they're fighting for the money, but your life is worth more than the money. But if you're like in the army, then like realistically you're like serving your country. Like people in the army don't make any money, basically.
Hmm.
Like we were just talking with Nick about this yesterday, but maybe you don't even remember this. But yeah, they're poor.
Hmm.
So I guess if you're a bodyguard and really shit hits the fan, you just leave. You're just like, okay, I'm done.
Yeah.
Unless you sign a contract that's like, if he dies, we sue you.
Hmm.
But anyway, but after this whole bodyguard thing, what were we were on Bionic Arms. We were on Who Did It.
Yeah.
So the bald guy, okay, bald white guy, not the main character. I was like, okay, that's definitely the
I will say,
guy.
this film reminds me a lot of even like down to like the structure of Knives Out.
Yeah, because it really is a cheaply Knives Out was actually it it was good. But it was still good because it had a bunch of good actors in it.
Hmm.
So and they didn't try to get too fancy with the killer. I mean, in Knives Out, I mean, he had a very clear motive from the beginning. Like I guess who did not was it Ryan Johnson that did Knives Out?
Yes.
Yeah, so he knows he's like, okay, I'm not the guy for like a complex mystery arc. So he very clearly gives Chris Evans clear motivation. He, and with Knives Out, by the way, I also called that the things were switched right away.
Mhm.
Like, did you know that when you watched Knives Out for the first time?
Yeah, I already knew the story of Knives Out when I had seen it.
Oh no, I was asking you. Okay, well, how did you know the story? Did someone tell you?
I watched some videos on it because I
You
didn't know
watched
I
you
wanted
watched
to watch
EFAP
it.
on it is what I'm picking up right now.
Yes.
But yeah, but like I mean, if you ever think about a movie with like if you take yourself out of it and think about like the meta likeness of it, then it was pretty obvious in Knives Out that the vials were switched.
Hmm.
I mean that of course that like your main character, not only your main character, but your main character played by Anna de Armas. Yeah, she's not the killer.
Yeah.
So and then so he knew that, so he was like cheap villain. The problem with these movies is that they want to be a fancy. Ooh, I didn't know that it was him, while also not having the skill to do that.
Well, I mean, ultimately, to be fair, I think one of the things that crippled the Knives Out story was just the fact that it was a medical mistake that was made, and so ultimately that would be on fault for the doctor automatically. Like if you ever administer the improper drug
It
to
was it wasn't a medical mistake though.
was it she gave I thought it was about that she gave him the wrong medicine was how it all started out.
Yeah, but she gave him the right medicine. But someone tried to switch the vials, but she could tell by the
Uh,
she didn't read the things because she could tell by the weight.
okay, wait, so she
She
hold on.
didn't kill him.
Yes, she didn't.
He, he they thought that she poisoned her and he killed himself to try to save. You don't remember this at all? He killed himself to try to save so she could inherit. But it turns out he was never. She didn't actually switch the vials. Someone switched them, and she gave him the right medication. And they spent the rest of the movie looking for.
Oh, okay.
Daniel Craig was looking for her, but he realized that someone was trying to kill her, and it was actually a suicide. Well, I guess there was that mistake at the end.
Yeah,
She
and
did a suicide.
yeah, because that was the part I was talking about was like for the administration of like improper drugs,
Right.
or it was about that. But I do
Yeah,
not
but
remember
she
too much.
didn't.
Okay, because I do not.
That
I honestly do not remember too much about it, but that part was the most confusing. And I was like, oh,
yeah.
okay.
Well, I
But
mean,
that's what
it
I'm
isn't
not.
very.
So.
Yeah, yeah. Let's go back. And then the sister, and I knew it was the sister as soon as she was nice.
Mhm.
Like as soon as you get a nice character in a movie like this, you're like, okay, you're the bad guy. Because people don't apparently nobody ever writes nice people anymore.
I thought it was going to be, at least in the first one, I thought it was going to be the guy they met on the plane because he was the nice guy, but it wasn't.
But it was the woman. It was the woman in the first one, right?
Well, it was the woman. No, it was the what's in it? The cousin?
Yeah, the cousin was a woman.
No,
Yes.
no, because it was the guy that they had the whole car chase scene with at the end of the first.
There were two killers in the first one.
Yeah, they were working together. There was a woman. She was one of them, but the guy at the end was
Right.
I forget what role he even played because honestly,
Yeah. All the characters they the
they did
characters the suspects aren't very distinguished in these movies.
they really aren't.
Like
They didn't even.
like surface level they all look very different, but
Yes.
really like when you get like the possible competing motivations, this movie doesn't go very far past the surface.
So to kind of describe this little confusion, um, the only little glimpses we get into the deeper lives of each character and what they do is a little 1 minute introduction at the start of the film when they're in a room together. And they're just saying, this is this person, he does that, this is that person, he does that. And then the rest of the movie is just them interacting. And so it was much more of a visual basis that I know the characters by, at least.
Did you see Death on the Nile by chance?
I did not. I have not.
Did you see the precursor to that movie, Murder on the Orient?
I have never really watched many mystery movies.
Okay. Well, I'll just say this because we've been comparing mystery movie to mystery movie, but
Which I haven't seen any.
those are movies done right because they're based on books.
Yeah,
That's how complex movies should be. Like leave the writing to writers, and then you can adapt.
yeah.
Like comedies can be written as movies, but serious movies should be written as books. But all the characters in Death on the Nile,
Mhm.
I mean, they're really not that visually distinct. I mean, everyone's kind of wearing similar clothing. Uh, most people are white and like middle aged, with like a couple Mediterranean folks in there, for flavor.
Yeah.
But but all the characters have, and the detective slowly uncovers what every character's potential motive is
Hmm.
throughout like the movie, and it's more people die. So you sort of get like a more thoughtful distinction between each character and what their possible means were.
Hmm.
And then okay, but that movie also has the benefit of having the death occur kind of later in the movie, like at the end of the first act rather than the middle of the first act.
Yep.
But or really more like the start of the second act. But yeah, like this movie, if you're thinking about like a bad detective like whodunit film, then what you want is no every character should have a distinct motivation. And in this movie, because it centers around money, it's all just like, well, why might this person need $50 million? It's like, well, everyone needs $50 million.
Mhm. I will
So,
give credit the to this film in how it was shot. It was a very well shot movie.
well, I agree with that. I think Netflix tends to be pretty good with that, with all the things that they produce.
Hmm.
Like, there are some movies where you're like, well, why did they? Although, you know what? Nowadays, like, if you're a high budget film, you have no excuse for being poorly shot.
Yes, which is
Like, if you
that it's like that is kind of like certain
and
aspects of films are weighted way more heavily by audiences than others, just usually by like more tangible aspects, such as like your VFX, how well it is shot, how your characters look, or how the audio sounds. Like those are generally going to be regarded way more heavily than the actual writing of the film, or like maybe the characters, which is sad.
well, I honestly think that even before that, I think that that's like there are three levels of things,
Hmm.
and what you like and what I like is like the third level of things, which is like, what's the significance of this action? Like, is this how like three-dimensional is this character?
Hmm.
Like, but I think even like the second level is like the visual effects of it and
Hmm.
what people want. But honestly, I think before that is acting and pacing. Because I think if a movie is like garbage, if it has good, if it was Leo DiCaprio and like uh who's like Gal Gadot, but it was all filmed in my basement
Hmm.
with like pieces of paper with palm trees drawn on them, I think people would still watch that if
I,
it had good pacing. Because I think even if how good like the effects are in your movie, if the pacing is too slow, people will fall asleep, and if it's too fast, they won't be able to follow.
for me, I am a personal sucker for character development, at least in my
Yeah,
movies.
and that right there is a third layer thing.
I believe that the entirety of a story is built off of the characters.
My
You're
favorite my favorite form of character development is when a character is alive in the beginning and dead in the end.
that it's a full arc.
Yeah, right.
Just looking online, Amanda Griever says, "Murder Mystery is neither a comedy nor a mystery. It is just bad behavior masquerading as mass entertainment."
That's really great. Maybe we should start reading other people's reviews at the end of this. That's hilarious.
That it's like that is a perfect summary of what this movie is, honestly.
Well, isn't all isn't that what a murder mystery is? It's bad behavior masquerade. Like the bad behavior is the murder.
It was a fast food action. It was a fast food action movie with a murder mystery taped into the last 10 minutes of it. You know, like I watched it. It got a
Yeah,
smile on
was
my
there
face.
really even like a murder in this murder mystery? It was a kidnapping.
Yeah, in the second one. Well,
There was a guy murdered in the beginning, but he wasn't. That wasn't the mystery, really. That is really funny. I didn't even think about that until right now. This is not a murder mystery movie. This is a hostage negotiation movie, or it's a a hostage trackdown movie or something like that.
what did you,
But
as a comedy though? What did you think of this movie as a comedy?
um,
I think it fell flat.
it leans on the actors. It leans on Adam Sandler and Jennifer Aniston, and I think they do a fine job.
Well, yeah,
But
they,
And
they
the Colonel, who's awesome. The Colonel's awesome.
they had good acting, but the dialogue and the comedy and the jokes. What did you think of those? Because
Oh,
I think
I
a lot.
like because I think maybe you dislike like the you dislike out of place dialogue
Mhm.
as a form of comedy. You're like it's a form of comedy that ruins the art form that it's a part of. But I kind of enjoy it because I think in order to pull that off, you have to have at least somewhat of a knowledge of the art form
Mhm.
in order to pull off like
You
the
can absolutely.
the ironic in time commentary, and I think they do that okay. I don't think it was great, but I was chuckling at some points in the movie.
Well, because look at like movies like Life of Brian or Monty Python and Holy Grail. Because it's
Yeah,
like those
but
are
those aren't comedies within an action movie. Those are
um,
like a
that's
series of
not my point.
sketches
That's not my
that
point.
okay.
Because so when you are taking out of context comedy or you're taking comedy that's just out of the place of the film, you can absolutely use that as an advantage if the rest of the film is supporting that as a comedy method. The difference is that this is a completely serious and very real events of an action movie that were going on with out of place meta commentary comedy directed oftentimes out of context of the situation occurring or what was going on screen. It was very out of place and contrasted with the rest of the film. The film didn't support the comedy. The comedy was, oh, look at what just happened. Lol.
Well, first of all, I think then I don't know. You hate British stand up
No, I love, well,
because
percent.
that's what because well that hold on because I was when you said that you kind of perfectly described what British stand up is.
Mhm.
Because whenever you watch someone like Jimmy Carr, who's probably like the biggest British stand up at the moment, he tells five one liners, then does 5 minutes of explaining why that joke was funny, and then he does it over and over again.
I don't
So
think
this movie has the thing where like there's action going on, and then someone makes a one liner, and then they just talk about what's going on, and the talking about what's going on is the comedy, because the joke is, haha, if you were fighting for your life, you wouldn't be wisecracking. Or you wouldn't be like having a very
that just
like
brought a whole nother level of low that I now see for this film.
you don't like it. You
Oh,
think it's worse.
I think that's a horrible style of comedy.
You hate the. But I think in order to do it, and I think Adam Sandler that's Adam Sandler's whole form of comedy. Like Happy Gilmore is a movie about a golf tournament where every other character is taking it seriously, and he's just like, okay, so I hit this ball thing. Wow, I just hit that ball.
I've seen some Adam Sandler movies, and the ones that were just comedies were good laughs. But like this is low for, in my book, this was low for an Adam Sandler movie.
Well, first of all, Adam Sandler he isn't doing just comedy movie. He did Uncut Gems somewhat recently, right?
Mhm.
And so he's trying to balance his built-in identity as a comedian with his new like I'm gonna do more serious movies now. And
Mhm.
I agree that this wasn't like the best way to do that, but it was. I don't think it was awful. I think you're understanding because I thought it was funny. I laughed.
Because I do love a lot of comedies. I've seen Hot Fuzz was on my number two on my list of favorite movies, and
Okay,
or
but that who's the character? Is it who's the sidekick in Hot Fuzz? What's his name?
I don't remember off the top of my head. Let's look it
You know
up.
the actor's name? Is it Nick something?
That's the main character was
Oh,
Nicholas
okay,
Angel
but
and Nick Frost, or no, Simon Pegg and Nick Frost.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. So
Nick.
his name's Nick.
Mm-hmm.
So Nick Frost,
Yeah.
that his character is basically fulfills the role of what both Adam Sandler and Jennifer Aniston were doing in this movie.
Mhm.
where Simon Pegg is a serious cop and he's doing his job. Uh,
And
Nick
he,
Frost is commentating on what's going on right now.
yeah, but also, Hot Fuzz uses a lot more of show don't tell, which
Yeah,
is
yeah,
why,
because Hot Fuzz was a more serious movie.
yeah, it uses a lot more show don't tell than it's like, yeah, there were definitely some like very meta jokes or meta commentary, as I'll put it, but like it was never as blatant or as obvious. And plus, the humor didn't contrast with the story or the events going on.
So like, okay, here's an example of the comedy in the movie, right? And
Hmm.
this is probably the least funny thing I thought happened in the movie, or one of them, right? So they give the briefcase to the bald guy, and he goes, "Meet me at a place," yada yada yada, and they
Yeah,
go, and they watch him walk away, and they're talking to each other, and they go, "What if he's the bad guy?" And she goes, "Well, he said he was a good guy," and he goes, "Well, wouldn't isn't that what bad guys would say?" And then
and
he gets in the car and he blows up.
it started showing. Well, I actually a lot of
And then a guy starts to walk towards the car to get the briefcase,
people.
and they're like, "Oh, he's walking into the fire now." And then a bus hits the guy, and they're just watching it, and they go, "Oh, now a bus hit that guy." So that it's they're like verbally talking about what's going on in a very casual way, and the
Mhm.
joke is supposed to be, haha, that's not how people would react in that situation,
Mhm.
because they're very calm about everything in this movie.
Yeah,
But you're saying I hate that. That's not really a joke. They're just verbalizing things that are generic action movie things that are going on.
yeah. They're more of a facilitator of exposition as opposed to a outlet of comedy.
But that's not exposition. Exposition would tell you something that you can't see on screen. They're watching what's going on screen, and they're commentating on it in the moment in a
Okay,
way that's out of place.
very out of place. Yeah.
And I think for that scene, I thought you were like what you're saying is right. Like that's not funny. And but I think for something like
Watching the guy
I
get
think
hit by a bus was pretty funny. But that was also a big throwback to the first film when the bus just saved the day. But
right.
it was kind of like a very anticlimactic way to finish that movie. Or it's like very anticlimactic just way to have events happen. Like I watched it, I'm like, oh, okay.
But like okay, when they're fighting the guy in the in the van, and she goes, "Oh, I'm sorry for killing you," and he goes, "Don't apologize to him, honey. He's the bad guy." You don't think that's funny?
That was it got as I said, it got a smile out of me at the end of the day.
Okay, yeah, because she says something that's out of place, and he says something very calmly that's just making an observation about what she said.
Hmm. It gave me a smile. I'm not gonna give it
Okay,
any more credit than
you get a smirk out of it.
that. Yeah. Mhm. But that's also just like one instance of probably one of the better smiles that it got out of me, as opposed to the rest of the film.
Well, I'm trying to think. There was one moment that I thought was super funny, but I cannot think of it right now. I remember laughing really hard at one point.
There was a detective from the first film when he found true love after he'd been shot with the girl who went to the Eiffel Tower, and that entire sequence just fell flat as I didn't
Yeah,
care about either of those characters. And this whole fight scene was getting constantly broken up by these two people who were sitting on the ground trying to cover up a bullet wound huffing smoke rings into each other's faces. And it was like, what the fuck is going on?
Yeah, I agree. That was really not. I think that was probably one of the less funny because I didn't care about that character either.
I didn't either. I liked him in the first movie, not in the second movie.
Yeah. So what do you give this movie out of? I mean, we've almost been going for an hour. Maybe it's been less than that.
It's
But
40 minutes in. I think my out of 10 rating would be a 5 out of 10. 4
I
out of
would give it a I would give it a
4.
6 out of 10.
Okay.
Maybe a
Yeah,
5.9 out of 10.
5 for the 5.5 for the first one, 4.5 for the second one because it didn't do anything creative.
Yeah. So if the second one was a 5.9, I think the first one's a 6.3.
Okay.
So
Like
would you
perfectly.
recommend people see it?
If you have nothing better to watch on Netflix,
If you watched, you're saying if you watched everything else on Netflix, then this is a good movie to watch.
yeah, if you have nothing else to watch, you can, and because you have a Netflix subscription, and want, go ahead, give it a try. Maybe if you have like a cheesy day over and you just want to entertain them for a little bit, watch
No,
Murder.
that's not a good date movie. What are you talking about? You were gonna watch a murder mystery on a date? Are you out of your mind? This is a
Do
I
people
can't fall
just
asleep on a Saturday night movie.
shit describe my experience watching it perfectly? But yeah, I watched it when I couldn't fall asleep on a Saturday night, actually.
That's hilarious.
But I'm not too discriminatory about who I would show my dates, what movies I would show to dates. But yeah, that I guess that makes sense.
I feel like you always suggest Fellowship of the Ring.
Actually, I did watch Lord of the Rings with a date once.
And then I think I imagine that it's actually like one of those like weird test things where you
It
say, "Oh, let's watch Fellowship," and the right answer for her is, "Oh no, I watched that last night. Let's watch Two Towers."
Oh, she came prepared. Oh, other than that, like, I don't have too much to add to further about those movies. We talked
No,
about
me neither. I mean, they're very generic.
we touched on the cinematography real quick, the comedy, um, the characters. Both of us loved the Colonel. I thought that he was the funniest by far, best character there. Um, but and outside of him, it was very mediocre. But no, I guess you take what you can get with movies like that.
Yeah, and I don't think I have anything else to add either, other than I always predict the killer in a murder mystery movie.
Okay. Well, then I guess it's my week to choose a movie
Next week.
for us to watch next
Yeah, because
week.
I think I've had two in a row now,
Oh yeah.
or maybe I haven't.
Well,
What did we do last week?
we didn't actually. I watched, but we didn't cover the Ballad of Buster Scruggs.
Oh, we're not covering that though. That's kind of an old. Been out
Um,
for a while.
we are going to cover.
Go to the movies. Go to the movies.
We are
Find
going.
some time.
Oh yeah, because once I finally get to see Honor Among Thieves, we'll talk about that. I want to talk about the new Super Mario movie, and
You know what? That's one of the very few movies that I don't want to watch because I love Mario too much.
I've heard really good things about it.
Yeah, and I don't trust. I think they're lying to me. I've heard good things about it too, and I think
I need to
I
see
don't want to have to hate my friends.
Yeah, I need to see The Last of Us. And what was that other one? Renfeld? Ryan
Renfield. Yeah.
Renfield? Yeah, I need to
Yeah.
see that one too.
You know what's really weird for a movie where Nicolas Cage plays Count Dracula? It's really good. Nicolas Cage is on a. Did you see that movie, The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent?
No.
It's Nicolas Cage, and he plays himself, and he's a failing actor.
Oh.
It's so meta. He's like Nicolas Cage. He's like nobody really knows if he's good at acting or if he just kind of sucks. And he gets invited to the house of a like massive arms dealer, paid by
Mhm,
Pedro Pascal, who's like a mega fan of him.
mhm.
And they develop a bromance as Pedro Pascal tries to get away from the cartel.
So
and
what's it?
and uh and it's called The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent. I think it's on Amazon Prime.
I don't have Amazon Prime, but I will.
Yeah, well, yeah.
No,
I don't expect you to, but yeah, and Nicolas Cage is supposed to kill Pedro Pascal. He's hired by the FBI. It's like a whole thing.
but
It's like
the
really
movie
surprisingly
we're
good.
going to be watching for next week is going to be The Iron Giant.
We're,
That
we're, we're reviewing The Iron Giant.
that is a film that we could go very in depth with.
Let's not though.
I'm going to.
Okay.
So yeah, Iron
Should I
Giant.
should I should I block out my entire night? Are we gonna go frame by frame on that one?
um, we could let's say at most 2 hours.
Okay. We'll call it most frames
You can watch
most
it
frames
on
stopped. We're calling it Moss. What we're
you
doing
can
with the
watch
Iron
it
Giant.
on YouTube.
Wait, is it
See,
it's on YouTube
yeah, or in
for free?
Amazon Prime. It's $4. YouTube
God
and
damn it!
Amazon Prime.
All right, I'll pay for it. I'll pay you $4. YouTube.
That's fine.
Don't even
Okay.
kill me. All right. So see you next week.